Hi everyone, Sean here. As you can see, I'm not in front of my workbench where I usually sit. I am in front of my PSP shelf, and this is where I keep my complete North America PSP collection, but that's not what today's video is about. It's been a while since I did an Ark install video. A lot has changed and the Ark project has evolved. A lot of enhancements have come along the way, so it's time to do a new Ark installation video. And whether you're coming from an older version of Ark or some other custom firmware, this one path that I'm going to demonstrate to do this installation should work just about regardless of what's currently running on your PSP. So if you're on an Infinity with Pro, or if you're on an old Infinity with Pro, say 660 or 620 or some of those older firmwares, this method is what you should follow to get to the latest version with the latest version of Ark and the newest bootloader. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is a PSP 2000 I'm using for this demo, and there are a couple settings I want to check in system settings. First, we want to see which firmware is currently running on this system, and this is 6.61 Pro C with Infinity. So next, I want to check the battery charge level, because to complete this procedure, we need the battery to be charged to 100%. So let's look at the battery charge at 100%. So we are good to go. Now I want to go look at what's on this memory card. Let's see. Okay, this has the Pro Fast Recovery, the Pro Updater, and the Pro Infinity. We'll delete those when we're done. And I need to download a couple of things off the web, so I'm going to open the PSP's browser. And I'm going to go to my portal, which is in my history, but this is the URL that you're going to type in. I don't want to make you watch me type on the PSP's on-screen keyboard, but that is the URL, psp.lucidgames.com. So we connect to the internet, wait for the portal to load, and here we are. So there are two tabs we're going to look at. There's the custom firmware page, where we're going to get the custom firmware download for Ark. And then there's the original firmware page, where we're going to get the downgrader and original firmware for 6.61. So the first step in this procedure is going to be just a clean reinstall of the original 6.61 firmware. So we're going to download the chronoswitch eBoot, and then we're going to get the firmware for this PSP. Now, if this were a PSP Go, I'd grab the download on the right, but this is a 2000, so I'm grabbing the one on the left. Okay, here we go. Now, I am going to speed this video up because I don't want to make you watch me download. PSP Wi-Fi is notoriously slow, so I'll skip ahead to the end. Download complete. And now we're going to go back up to Home and then over to the custom firmware download page. And we're just going to download the installer for Ark. This Ark installer contains three components that we're going to use. It has the Ark loader, the Ark Full Installer, and the Ark Custom IPL installer. So we download the zip file, we let this complete. And that should be about it. Done. So now we can exit out of the browser, return to the XMB. Now we're going to go into the game menu and find the chronoswitch downgrader. And you'll see we also have the PSP update for version 6.61. If you're on an older original firmware, you can just run that 6.61 directly, but since we're on a custom firmware, we're going to run the chronoswitch downgrader. And this should work on just about any 6.something firmware. The blue text on this downgrader is really difficult to read, but we're just going to press X as directed to proceed through the wizard and kick off the installation of 6.61. So what this tool does, it allows the original 6.61 installer from Sony to run on PSPs that have other custom firmware, or PSPs that already have 6.61 and we just want to do a clean install. Now, it does take a minute to trigger that installer, and I'm letting this play out in real time because you will see this black screen which goes on for 30 seconds or so, and so this gives you a sense of how long it's actually going to take. And we're just about done. Okay, here we are. So we're in the installation tool for 6.61. This is the official updater. And we will just step through the procedure. Now, to run this, you need a charged battery and you need to be plugged into AC. And you need to leave that AC charger plugged in the entire time you're doing this to avoid an accidental firmware break. And again, I'm going to speed it up so we don't have to watch this whole thing crawl across the screen. Press X, we're done, and now we're rebooted and we're back in the XMB. So let's go look at the system settings and see what the current firmware says it is. Here it's version 6.61, no Pro, no Infinity. This is the official firmware. So there's no custom firmware on here now. So let's go ahead and run the Ark installer. Now the Ark installer doesn't actually install the Ark custom firmware itself. It just installs the 3 tools that we need to complete the installation. So first it's going to extract all of the contents onto the memory card so we can run the Ark loader, and then we'll run the Ark Full Installer, and then we'll run the custom IPL installer. And just about done. Okay. All right, we're back in the XMB, and now we go back to the game menu, and you can see we have the Ark loader, the Ark Full Installer, and the custom IPL flasher. And we're going to run them in that order. First, trigger the Ark loader. Okay. This goes by pretty quickly. This entire procedure only takes a few minutes. And now we're back at the XMB, and we'll go in, push select, and you can see the VSH menu pop up. That tells us we're in custom firmware. Now I like to run the Ark Full Installer. That makes Ark less dependent on the contents of the memory stick, but this is an optional step. You don't actually have to do this. If you're just going to use one memory stick, you can skip the full installer. But I like to run it, so I'm demonstrating that. And now we're on to the custom IPL flasher. Now the custom IPL flasher, depending on which model you're on, is going to give you one of 2 choices. It's either going to give you the option of the classic cIPL, which it's giving me here because I'm on a 2000, or it's going to go straight to the new IPL. So I'm going to select the new IPL menu, and then I'm going to push X to install the new cIPL. And that is it. So this now has Ark custom firmware. Push select. We can see we're on R7, and we'll go over and check the settings. So we go to system settings and then down to system information, and we can see we're on 6.61 with ARK4 and custom IPL. Now the firmware stage is complete. So the next thing we can do, since we're done with this Pro stuff, is go ahead and delete it off the memory stick because we're not going to need it anymore. Now, one thing that's different in the way Ark manages the PSP versus the old firmwares managed the PSP is the way the plugins are handled. In the old days, you used to have to hand edit these 3 text files, game text, VSH text, and POPs text, to enable or disable plugins and add them to the inventory so that you could then enable or disable them in the recovery menu. Well, Ark has done away with all of that and handles it all right through the XMB, but it's a little different, so let me show you how to enable a couple of plugins now that we've converted this system over to Ark. Okay, we're back in the XMB, and if we go over to the Extras menu, we see the Plugin Manager, and there's only an example plugin here, it's just a placeholder. But if we go to the VSH menu, and we go to the Advanced VSH menu, there's an option at the bottom called Import Classic Plugins. And what this does is it imports the plugin config from the old custom firmwares that use the 3 different text files. So it's going to read those text files, it's going to import those plugins into the plugin manager, and then it will reload the XMB to reload the plugin file. And now when we go over and check the plugin manager again, under Extras, under Plugin Manager, we see that all my old plugins are back, just like I had them configured under Pro. But there's one more plugin that I copied over to this memory stick but never set up under Pro. So let's register that new plugin. We'll use the custom launcher. And then once the custom launcher loads, we'll hit the triangle button. That brings up a menu at the top. And we'll go over to the file browser. And this file browser opened directly into the ms0/se plugins folder, but you might have to navigate there, on screen. And you can see here the plugin files of PRXs, the old configuration text files, and at the bottom is the plugins text that Ark uses. Now I can open it and edit it manually in the file browser, but I don't need to do that. I can just go up to the PRX file that I want to register, push X, and I know this plugin from its README installs into the VSH menu or the XMB. So I hit X, I pick my plugins text configuration file to store the config, and now I push triangle again to bring up the top menu of Ark's custom launcher, and I go over to exit. And that's going to let me exit back out to the XMB. Okay, now with the XMB reloaded, I'll head back over to the Plugin Manager. So back over to the Extras menu, down to Plugin Manager, and when we open that up, we can see my new plugin is loaded and enabled. So that's how you register plugins in Ark. You just do it through the XMB and the custom menus. And there's one more thing I want to show, and that is how to do an online update. So let's take a look at that process. Okay, we're back in the XMB, and the update is all the way over to the left and up at the top. We can trigger the updater, but I can't show this over the capture card, so I'm going to have to switch to the camera view. Okay, we're back in the camera view. I go up, I do the system update, and I trigger the online update. Let it connect to my Wi-Fi hotspot, and off it goes, downloading the update. Now I am speeding this up a bit. PSP Wi-Fi is from 2004. It's not the fastest Wi-Fi you're going to encounter, but it does get the job done, and it's super simple. So we let this continue downloading, and once it's complete, we can install it. Okay, now we just push X to trigger the installation. Okay, off it goes. We're getting some glare here, but you get the idea. It's just extracting the updated files onto the memory stick and into the firmware, onto the flash, and then it's going to reload the XMB once the update's installed. And then I'll be able to push select to bring up the VSH menu, and I'll see that this system has now been updated. So we can see this is on R8. I was on R7 before, so update successful. And it's that simple. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments or something wasn't clear, let me know in the comments section below, and I'll try and help you along and get your PSP updated to the latest and greatest. Thanks. Bye.